Welcome to the FarmHopLife Monday Night Men's Forum. I am Matt Derosier of FarmHopLife, and tonight, making a return appearance, is Scott Thompson of Little Pine Farm in Colorado. How's it going, Scott?
Hey, Matt, it's good.
Thanks
We
for
are
joining
just,
me tonight.
hey, thanks for having me.
Yeah, I mean, you're always welcome. You just had to push back your medicine schedule just a little bit.
Yeah, and yeah, we're usually, in bed around 8, sleep
Really?
asleep
What
before
time do you
9.
get up? 2?
No, like 4:30, 5,
Okay.
whatever.
Okay.
I like to give my body the opportunity for 8 hours, even if I don't necessarily always get it.
Sure.
Um, so yeah. And then I'm up bright and early with the dogs. We had client dogs get dropped off a little after 6 a.m. Um, so yeah, I've been up and at it for a while. They just left a couple hours ago.
Oh, nice. Short, short, short stay
Yeah, they
just for the
usually come
day.
like 2 or 3 days a week, just while their humans are, I don't know, out doing work stuff, I suppose.
Nice. So let's talk about some news. Can you start us off? What do you know about monkeypox?
I know that all the people who told us the truth about COVID are saying that it's nothing to worry about. Uh, and as usual, there's shenanigans on all numbers presented on
Are
corporate
they
media.
are they saying it's nothing to worry about?
I mean, the I was just glancing at that Robert Malone Substack, and it looks like the official numbers. First of all, they're saying 10% death rate on the news. The official thing from the WHO is like 3.7, and that's supposedly only cases that are like severe enough to cause national attention and reports to the WHO. So it seems to be a 1% or less type of thing.
I've been hearing that it's a very specific group of people that are contracting it, specifically gay and bisexual men.
Yeah. Um,
Like that's how it's transmission missing
who
primarily.
knows? I guess I got nothing to worry about then.
Yeah, same, I guess. I don't know. I don't think I sleepwalk. Who knows?
You got
Who
like
knows
a
what happens?
gay Moon Knight thing going on.
A gay werewolf or something. Uh, so,
So I'm
but
not I'm
you
not worried about it. I think it's,
sure.
I'm fully expecting a full international level panic about something. Guess what? The October surprise this year is airborne AIDS. Everybody gets it. All right. Um,
Someday, aerosolized
whatever.
AIDS.
Yeah, who knows?
Maybe someday. Hopefully not this year. I got big
Yeah,
plans this year.
I think anybody talking monkeypox and like Amber Heard and whatnot just
Oh
doesn't
my
want
gosh,
us
I'm so ready for that junk to
just
be over.
doesn't want us looking in Switzerland this week with the WEF and the WHO meeting with their paramilitary police force. Crazy shit,
Yeah.
man. Oops,
Tell
sorry.
me
Are we
no, that uh
family channel? I'll get
it's
on that.
I just did an interview yesterday and the guy dropped the F bomb a couple times, and so um I'm not gonna edit
I did just get out
that
of 90.
explicit, so
I did just get out of 90 minutes of Call of Duty with my brothers.
nice. You mentioned something kind of interesting before the show on the WEF about their military. Can you talk about that for a second?
Oh, I was watching videos on Twitter. Jack Posobiec, yeah, who take him or leave him, whatever. He posted this video of journalists getting harassed by WEF cops. Like they have their own paramilitary police force. It's not the Swiss national police. It's not like a municipality police. It's their own thing.
So
Um,
weird.
And it's especially in light of like the few rights we've managed to hang on to when it comes to like police encounters and stuff. Watching these videos is just horrifying. Like somebody's trying to get information on why they're detaining another journalist over there, and they're like, "Oh, we have a reason. We have to have a reason, or we can't stop them." And she's like, "What is it?" And they're like, "We don't have to tell you." It's like, "Oh, okay, great." And then the lead like cop lady tells her to delete the video after their conversation, which is just chilling. Um,
It's
Crazy,
backed up to
man.
the cloud. Go get it.
Today, the National Mayors Association met with the WEF people. Like they're injecting themselves on every single level of government, from local to national to the WHO treaty, which will usher in global powers like nobody's ever seen before.
We're in for a wild ride.
Yeah, chaos is a ladder, man. We can do
Chaos is the
some
ladder.
we can do some cool stuff while everybody's scrambling.
Yeah, absolutely.
We gotta be ready though.
Yeah. Was there any other news you wanted to take care of before we jump into the main topic?
I try not to pollute my mind with such things.
Same. Yeah. I hate that this Johnny Depp Amber Heard junk keeps showing up in my, like, I haven't watched any of it. It just sounds like a train wreck, and honestly I don't even care what happens. Don't even know what it's about, but I'm tired of it being in
Oh,
my face.
it's about Amber Heard is completely psychotic and has been very abusive and lying and destroying careers. And Johnny's weird, but he's cool.
Johnny's
But no,
weird,
it
but he's
doesn't.
cool.
There was one other thing actually. Oh shoot. Oh yeah, I just read it like half an hour ago. They're going to be dipping into the strategic diesel reserve very soon to
Oh,
like
cool.
to try and stave off or delay what's coming. Because once the diesel crunch really hits, like that's when things are going to start going up big time.
Yeah.
So we've been planning a couple of stocking up orders and trips to town and stuff. We're going to be sure and get those done in the next couple of days here. But
Yeah,
yeah, and the
that's good to know
strategic
for
diesel
sure.
reserve is like this big compared to the strategic oil reserves. Like it's not that much. I think it's kind of intended to like keep the army moving for a couple of days or some shit.
Keep the
I
army
did it
moving.
again.
Whatever. What couldn't they just start accepting oil from Russia again and it'd be fine? Like
That ship sailed,
we
man.
w- we
If we
wouldn't
want
have
that, we're
to do that.
paying. If we want that, we're paying in rubles.
It's doing well so far. Oh my gosh, we got another dude
Ah.
jumping in.
Hey, all right.
Josiah,
Hey,
how's it going, dude?
good. How are you guys?
Hey,
Good, man.
good.
So we had a very lengthy discussion about Johnny Depp and Amber Heard. I don't know if you were aware.
We've been dissecting the trial.
Following it day to day. We talked about we were just talking about the diesel reserves. Know anything about that, or do you want to comment on something else, like something fun, like monkeypox?
Oh, I'll just follow along. I know that the diesel thing is probably the diciest thing of everything going on right now. So
Yeah.
as entertaining as the Amber Heard Johnny Depp trial is,
Yeah,
it's a good distraction. It's a good distraction, right?
is it a good distraction?
It's not really a good. It's not good, but I guess it's good in that it is a distraction.
Sure.
It's not good though.
No,
I think
it's
it's
probably
kind of
not that
sad
great.
more than a lot.
So should we jump right in then? Main topic?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So I knew I wanted to talk about this week, and so a couple days ago I had sent out a tweet. It got like a little bit of traction. What made me think about it is when I asked people to like interview, they're like, I'm not really a homesteader. Like I'm not, like I'm just not a homesteader. I'm like, Do you have a garden? Do you have chickens? Do you do any of like anything? And they're like, well, yeah. I'm like, let's talk about that. Like, whatever the label, like, I don't care. Let's not try to split hairs here. Like, let's talk about that. So the tweet that I sent out is, I don't consider myself a homesteader. Most people. There's a weird gatekeeping around homesteading. A homestead is about mindset and intention. I'm discussing this topic Monday night and like some more input. What do you think? And Scott, you chipped in. Great topic. People get so hung up on small primate mouth noises. And then we were trying to coordinate. And Long Story Farms, Mr. Geoffrey, who I need to get on here eventually. He said big tent homesteading. And I'm like, what is that? I'm like, what does that mean? Like, you can't be in a club? And he said, I call what we're doing a farm stand because it's a homestead at its core, but we aspire to be a farm.
Farmstead?
Yeah, he calls what he's doing a farmstead.
Farmstead.
It's a homestead at its core, but we aspire to be a farm. I think the tent should be big enough for people like me, even once I achieve my aspirations. And I said, this is why I want to talk to everyone about it. Somebody growing food in their apartment to 120 plus acre ranches. If someone wants to scale up, all of a sudden they're out. That's dumb. So I think we need to, like the big tent, like what Mr. Long Story Farms said. I like that.
I think it's, people get so hung up on a word, and often to the point of overlooking what somebody is actually doing. And to me, it's, if you're trying to really, if you just are mindful of some level of sustainability and you're producing some level of your own food or livelihood on your property, like, I don't have any problem calling that a homestead, regardless of how big it is. Even if you're just like crafting and growing some herbs in the window, and making $1,000 on Etsy or something, that's awesome. Like, you're a home business, home industry, cottage industry, homestead, whatever you want to call it.
I think for us, my big thing with it is mostly that it used to be normal, and I don't know that people really ever, maybe they call themselves that, but it was just kind of life. I think I don't know that the average person 100 152, I mean, yes, they probably call themselves farmers. I think that was probably the most normal thing. And I think that farming, whether it be that, where I live, if I called myself a farmer, the dude down the road with 2,600 acres would laugh his butt off at me. So I think that term's kind of taken away. And I think homestead, for me, homestead more means kind of living like what I do. Not really in it for the money. I think it's kind of my line for homestead. Which means I would probably fall into that. I don't like it, generally speaking, just because I don't really like labeling. Like, it's just me doing what I wanted to do. I don't necessarily have some huge overarching plan for my homestead.
Sure.
I just like doing these things. So I never put a label on it. It's what Josiah wanted to do. Like, but I do like some of those other things that you were talking about, as far as like cottage industry, any of those things. Like for me and for my wife, a lot of what we've talked about doing is trying to get a little bit more of our income stream coming from the property. Regardless of what that looks like. So a lot more like a home industry. I don't even necessarily, home business these days oftentimes is just selling some random thing or a digital, or it's not really something tangible. So for us, I mean, that's something we've been looking at, whether it be the sawmill, whether it be, dairy products, or, whatever that looks like. But again, I don't know. I never did like that term. And then it hit pop culture, and I don't like being labeled by pop culture. I guess I'm a little bit of a hipster in that regard. I don't know.
Now you
We'll have to
touched
come
on
up with a new
something.
word.
You touched on something there. Just like making a little more money at home, like not working for other people, but doing something productive on your own land. And the kind of the core of our mission here is just lifestyle. Like my primary goal is not profits. My primary goal is to cover all of our expenses with operations on this property, and enable myself to, follow some passions once I get the bills taken care of. I don't want to leave. I want to stay here for my work. I want to stay here for my play. I want to stay here for socializing and, make a space that's conducive that people want to come to and enjoy with me. So for me, it's all about lifestyle. Like I'm pursuing a very specific lifestyle, and I think I've identified some ways to get to that point. Um, and yeah, the label thing is just so exhausting these days.
I think you actually I've talked about it a little bit on Twitter, but for me, like the idea of subsistence farming, right? Like it's this idea of a hard scrabble existence where you're fighting for every meal, and I think if anything, I don't know that word. It's probably closer. My idea for where I want to go is probably closer to that than anything else. Just that it's subsistence home or whatever, but in a way that it's not that I'm feeding myself solely off what I produce. It's that
Hmm.
what I produce is capable of taking care of all of those expenditures that I have to make. So it's not I can't, like, there are things that I lack in Northwest Missouri that there's no getting around. And so trading for those, paying the mortgage, all those different little things, that's not really subsistence farming. That's for sure not what people think of it as. But for me, that's more what I would strive for is what are the things that I can produce on my piece of property, and how can that take care of all my other needs? And maybe homesteading is the best word for that. I don't like, again, I just don't like people labeling me. But I think ultimately that's where I want to be, is probably closer to a subsistence farmer. Um, and yeah, I'm probably not I mean, I don't work all day on the farm, and so there'd be some differences in that as far as, building other income. But I think that's where I want to go with all of that, is make the property work for me. So,
In a way it could work for you is even if you don't make money on it, it can definitely save you money easy just from the produce you rake in. I don't know if you guys saw that photo floating around yesterday or today of like someone buying two big ass tomatoes, and it was like $8, and it's like two tomatoes, $8, and I was like, doesn't seem so stupid now, does it? Like growing tomatoes.
Yeah.
Didn't have to spend that $8. Just some labor. And like that's
Now,
just one example.
even growing a small portion of your own food has always like been like printing money, and that is just gonna become more true every single day.
Yeah.
I know I talked about it, I think on here before, but one of the things that happened when Corona hit was there was huge demand for our eggs. And previously we had sold just here and there, but I mean, we were selling out all the time. I mean, to the point where almost to the point where I was telling the kids we're not having eggs this morning because I've already sold these eggs, kind of a thing. And so I think that there is, as prices change, and as things continue to escalate, having that capability of feeding yourself, and maybe even turning it into something where you're making money or where you're trading, where you're bartering, I think that is going to be a big deal. Um, we free range our birds now. That wasn't something we were doing back when Corona first hit, but the cost has gone down dramatically to the point where they're probably, I mean, if we were selling every egg, or every egg that we're not, for personal consumption, we'd make money. And obviously that's worth something now, even if it's just bartering for something else, somebody else's
Mhm.
product. So, and that,
Well,
inflation can't get away from that. That, they can't get rid of that, the barter.
right. And
They're gonna
when
try.
people are starting to look more and more outside the grocery store, like, because I can't, well, people that have half a brain, They're like, I can't rely on the grocery store anymore. I'm gonna have to figure out what's my plan B and start making those, like, people are starting to make those connections now, which I guess is better than 3 months from now or 6 months from now. So like they're like, oh, like I was talking to some friends last week. And they're in Wisconsin. They have like a small operation, ducks, chickens, and rabbits, and they get people stopping by their farm all the time. Can I buy a cow from you guys? We don't have a cow. How about bacon or pig or anything? And they're like, no, we don't have any of that. I'm like, you guys are missing a huge opportunity. Start being brokers for food. Like, start like just like, yeah, I'll hook you up with a cow, get it to you next week or whatever, and just like go like haul ass trying to find a cow in your community, a farmer that you know, and make it 10% on it. I don't know.
That's a great idea.
When you speak, I mean, no, that is actually probably a great business idea. I feel like with the disconnect between whether you want to, farmers or just food in general, the number of people that we hear, that my wife hears about or whatever, talking about how we don't know anyone else that has goats. We don't know anyone else that has chickens. We don't, do you know somebody that has cows that would sell a whole cow, especially back when that whole slaughter, the backlog at the meat processing. So yeah, I feel like, I mean, you probably could as a business idea be kind of a food broker fairly well, and it'd be a pretty small scale thing. But yeah, I feel like with that disconnect, it is hard. And if you are, I mean, presumably they have some drive-by business. I'm not going to get any drive-by business where I am, but presumably your friends are getting drive-by business, and it is a good opportunity. It's a great marketing opportunity for them.
Yeah, I think. Do you guys know who Niti Bali is? She is like food pharmacy with an F, pharmacy with an F. That's basically what she does. She connects people with like, she's like the intermediary between the consumer and the farmer, and like she just has like a food church, I think is what she calls it, and she just has like freezers and freezers and freezers full of meat, and like you have to be a member of the church to get this to have access. And the reason she issued it as like a church is for certain protections from the like legal protections. So I was like, that's pretty smart. So I texted my mom just before the show, just to kind of as like a talking point, right? Let me throw up a quick banner here. There we go. So I said, hey, really quick, why do you and Dad have a garden? I want to share it as a brief talking point on the show tonight. And I haven't pre-read any of this at all. So hopefully this goes somewhere. My mom says, I have a garden because fresh from the garden vegetables taste so much better, especially tomatoes and cucumbers. There is no comparison, and it's nice to just go out to the garden and pick fresh veggies and eat them right there. I said, do you consider yourself a homesteader? Why or why not? She said, no, because I don't can, freeze, or pickle food. I don't sell clothing or raise animals for food. I grew up doing that, and my lifestyle now is not like that. I said, would you say that lifestyle wasn't for you? Why? And she said, not necessarily. I have fond memories, but was a lot of work, and it doesn't happen overnight. It took my parents' time and my dad also working a full-time job to make ends meet. And so I guess it kind of goes back to what we started off with, like, like intention, mindset. I guess I should have thrown lifestyle in there. My mom just likes to garden. She doesn't want to do everything else. So, it's like gardening falls under the, the bad label of homesteading, right? And she brought up a lot of other good points too, like raising animals and sewing clothes and things like that. Like those would fall under the umbrella of like homesteading, pickling food, canning, freezing, those things. So it's interesting that she doesn't consider herself a homesteader, but does a piece of homesteading, like something that a lot of homesteaders do which is easy, is have a garden.
No, I think it's funny that you would say that, because it brings up a good point, and that is what at what point do you do enough of those things that you would consider, based on the definition that gets slapped
Right.
on. How much of your life has to revolve around your piece of property, your homestead, for it to be considered a homestead. And I don't know that necessarily that a garden is. I mean, my parents had a garden growing up. I knew lots of people had a garden growing up, and they were, absolutely not. I mean, heck, one of the farmers that has, I mean, he's got a conventional cattle operation, and he does row crop, and his family's got a garden. He would laugh at being called a homesteader, as he,
Sure.
sprays everything down with all sorts of stuff, and row crops thousands of acres. So I don't. I mean, it is an interesting thing to know, like, where, if you solely garden, but you also maybe can, does that make you a homesteader at that point?
Maybe. One of my notes actually is like, I wrote, they're not going to take your card away. So like, if you like, let's say you have like a homesteader punch card, right? And you have to have all 10 things punched, kind of like a Pokemon master badge or whatever, to be considered a master. You don't have to have all these things. You can do, let's say, even like 2 things and be considered a homesteader if you want to be. Like, you don't have to hit all 10. Like, if you have a garden and can your food, I'd say that's a homesteader. I'd say the entry level's super easy.
Yeah, I think just whatever the percentage is, like some sort of significant percentage of your own material needs, like covering your own food or fuel or fiber or whatever. I think if across the board we could average out like 10%, people growing 10% of their food on average, some people growing 50, some people growing 80, some people growing 2. I think that would be a real like tide change in food
Oh,
systems.
absolutely. Be a mindset change.
Yeah, and mindset. That's a good way of putting it. Homesteading's it's a mindset. It's a state of being. It's a relational thing. It's how you relate to where you live, I think.
Can you imagine people in this country, like, knowing that, like, they don't have to, like, they already thought they didn't have to worry where their food comes from, and then all of a sudden, for a lot of people, the first time in their life, they actually have to worry about where they're, like, if they're going to be able to fill their refrigerator next week,
Yep.
And that's scary to them. And so, because they're not prepared, it wasn't important to them. They just kind of I'll just let somebody else take care of it. It's a big store; they've got to fill it with stuff, and so like there'll always be food there. Like, not so much. So I kind of forgot where I was going with that, but I remember the mindset of someone, like, or of everybody, if they had the 10%, like they had 10% of their food taken care of or whatever on their own. Like, wow, I mean, you could do a lot better, but you also could do a lot worse too. And just to be a very freeing. And I think you'd also see a lot of other shifts as well following that. Like, if I can grow my own food, what do I need you for?
Yeah, it's just 10 or so percent. I mean, I know the official inflation is like below 10% still, but if we counted it the way we used to count it, it'd be more like 20. So there's a great number, encourage people to grow 20% of their own food. 1 calorie in 5, and you would not only like change their financial picture, but probably change their life.
Oh yeah.
Well, even if you didn't, I mean, even if you didn't do calorie, even if you just did your cash value,
Yeah.
say you had $100 just, I'm terrible at math, so $100 a month in food bill, and you could knock $20 off of that with what you're growing, right? Then you could because I mean that would be the hard part for a lot of things. I guess for for us, there's a bunch of things that we can't, or it's just not it's not time efficient yet. Wheat would be one of them.
Yeah.
We don't really grow our own wheat. We eat a lot of bread. My wife makes it all. We make it from scratch, but we can't fill that. But if tomatoes are $8 for 2 of them, then I for sure can cut a whole heck of a lot of money off tomato costs. Growing tomatoes are easy. So yeah, I mean, I think that would be the big challenge. And it's the proof is in it doesn't take a whole lot of money, and we're not too particular about the food that we buy necessarily. But it doesn't cost a whole lot for us to feed our family of 7, in large part because we source a lot of this stuff ourselves. And some of the big money stuff, we don't really buy meat. We don't buy dairy. We don't buy eggs. So a lot of those big expenditures we do cover ourselves, and that means we don't, going back to what I was talking about, we don't necessarily have to go out and buy and plant a field of wheat so that we have enough, for bread for the year. We have the savings from doing these other things, so we can swing back and say, okay, we can pay the $20 for a big old bag of wheat. So I think that, but I mean, I think you're right about, that percentage, and it's probably something like that for us. It's probably, it probably comes up to 25-30% of our actual costs that we're defraying by, hunting, fishing, and raising goats and chickens,
Awesome.
So it's not cash, but cash, I think cash is a good way of doing it.
Yeah, that's a better way of looking at it, I think. The cost.
Sure.
Sure.
Yeah. Especially if I heard buy your calories and grow your nutrients before. Like,
I like that.
So like calories you can purchase pretty cheap, but like it's going to be crap in nutrients. So you can do, even if you spend a ton of money at the grocery store trying to get nutritious food, it's going to be lacking nutrients. And so you'd be better off just growing your own nutrient dense food.
Well, and I mean, I get, for all intents and purposes, that's basically what we've done. I never thought of it that way, but the meat and the dairy and the eggs, that's the topping for the stuff that I buy from the store. The rice and the wheat. So I never thought of it. I was just sitting here going, what can I save money on? Gallons of milk are expensive. But no, that's a good way of thinking about it.
I'm really excited. We're just experimenting with some staples up here this year, which I've never really gotten into. I've grown a lot of animals, I've grown a lot of vegetables, but staples are a whole nother thing. We're doing potatoes and sorghum and millet and barley. Excited to see how that goes.
That is something we tried. We're trying a little bit. We're trying a bunch of corn. But not sweet corn. We're gonna grind it. We didn't do potatoes. I didn't get them in the ground, but that was something that hit. Was we've made this garden and we've planted all sorts of different stuff. But at the end of the day, it wasn't necessarily replacing anything that we were buying. It was supplementing, or it was fun. So this year, much like you with your stuff, although you planted a lot more of it than we did. My goal this year was maybe we can replace a couple more of those things, which is why we went kind of gung ho on corn. And that was partially just to feed the chickens too. But it's a good idea, how, the grains, I think, are grains and potatoes. It's a big one.
Yeah, especially with India just announcing last week that they won't be exporting any wheat this year, and likely next. The global commodity grain markets are going to be very challenging. Rice had a really good season last season, so but who knows with the diesel thing and everything else. I like to think I can always just get on Azure Standard and have a bunch of flour and barley and sorghum delivered to my house, but who knows? I can't. If their shipping keeps going up to keep pace with gas prices, then that's not happening.
Well, I think, I mean, honestly, the funny thing for me is the number of people that, as soon as the last food insecurity issue 2 years ago happened, people stuck their head right back in the sand. And,
Yeah.
and then the
It's cozy
formula
there.
thing pops up and everybody freaks out again. But that hasn't extended beyond the formula. I know a lot of people, they're panicking about the formula, but they haven't said, it happened here. What else, where else could this happen? There's been a few people that have been a little more aware of meat since the processor thing.
Mm-hmm.
But other than that, nobody, I mean, they're the normies, I guess we'll call them. It's never hit. It's never hit
Labels.
again. I'll label people. I'll do it myself. I don't like people labeling me, but I'll label them. But I mean, I have friends that they're, I think they're aware of it. I just, again, I don't know what it would take other than Corona or the baby formula shortage for people to say, maybe I need to pay attention to that. And I mean, that's concerning in and of itself. So
Yeah, how many events will it take for like a lot of people to be like, hey, so things seem a little unstable. I should probably save some food, grow some of my own food, maybe exchange something, some sort of commodity with my neighbor who I know grows food, because I'm not doing it like myself yet, or I'm only doing herbs and they've got like a half-acre garden or something like that. Like we got a comment from it. I don't know if you guys can see this. We got a comment from Long Story Farm. Hey guys, I forgot to join again. That's all right. You can jump in now. We're like, it's still available, but that's up to him. So my wife was talking with a friend of hers, and she's, again, I don't want to label, but she's quite left, let's say. And my wife talked to her for the first time in like 6 months, just because like she got busy, they got whatever. And she's like, my wife was telling me about their conversation. She's like, you're never going to believe what she said. And I'm like, what? She goes, I think the government's too involved in our lives. and I was like, oh, really?
Nice.
Tell me more. And she's like, yeah, she's just like, there's a lot of stuff. She just said that there's a lot of stuff going on that, it's too invasive. I think for her, what pushed her over the edge was the Roe v. Wade thing, which if that's what pissed you off, fine. Good for you. Like, let's get pissed off together.
Whatever it takes.
Yeah, whatever it takes. And so, like, how many events like that need to happen before more people everywhere, both sides, don't care, like, will kind of take up their own responsibility to be able to like feed themselves and their families. So,
and especially considering that it's really just kind of a return to normal, food insecurity prior to the last 70, 80 years amongst first world. That wasn't, I mean, people were still concerned about those things. Great Depression, wasn't that long before that. In Europe, obviously, they've known starvation even more recently than the 20s. So you'd think that it would be a little more, people would at least be able to see that just because it's been 80 years, or I guess closer to 100 years for Americans, doesn't mean that that's not gonna come back. Because all of history tells us food shortage is the main driver for most of the things that happen, most events that happen in history. And so it is kind of fascinating that people, that these warning signs are popping up and people aren't saying, like you said, I either need to make contacts with people, or I need to start doing some of my own stuff, or both, quite frankly. It would behoove people. And I don't know what point, if formula and a complete lack, I mean, there was complete lack of food in a lot of places with Corona. But this formula thing, maybe people start waking up. I don't know.
Maybe.
Yeah, I think it's just a sad truth of the human condition that most people are unwilling to make changes until they are made extremely uncomfortable. I think it's going to take $8 or $10 gas and regular bare shelves for the bulk of the population to accept that there are serious problems with the way that we've been doing things, and the butcher's bill is coming due.
It's interesting you said, because I mean, you hear stories about people that grew up in the Depression that they would stash the money away or whatever. So their normal had always been that, and we not we, I wasn't old enough to do this, but you'd hear stories, people, their kids poo-pooing them for hiding money or for having, stacks of canned goods. My grandparents, when they died, they had just a ridiculous pantry, far more than two elderly people could ever eat, and it was leftover. It was leftover from that mentality, and so I don't know, if that. I don't know how many people had to get burned. I don't know how many generations it took for that to be not normal, and for I don't know how long it'd take us to come to this new normal that the rest of the world experiences food insecurity. For whatever a buzzword. I don't know what it would take. Other than, like you said, people actually legitimately going without stuff for a long period of time to wake them up to the fact that we have a lack.
Hey,
Speaking of canned goods,
Hey.
Get your work, man. Don, what's up?
How's it going? Have you been following along much?
I just kind of took a break. I was doing some stuff, and then I sat down. And I go, I forgot again. I get kind of busy in the evenings, and then I look later, and I'm like, So no, I haven't really followed along. I was just listening to a little bit of the what would make people wake up, and I don't know. I mean, you can see behind me, like I'm awake. But anyway,
I'm woke.
but yeah,
not that.
But yeah, I just one thing I was going to say is, like I grew up in a family that was really hardcore kind of religious prepper types, like, so it was kind of my background. But the thing that happened to me when I was a kid, I was like 12. My dad went back to school, and we
his internet's taking a crap.
Breaking up.
Yeah, it's because I live in the middle of nowhere, no broadband. But anyway,
well, and Starlink has been
so
miserable for me today, so I get the horrible internet.
I'm gonna stop my camera. Maybe that'll help me a little bit.
All right.
But,
all right, that sounds good.
Yeah. But anyway, I don't know if you missed what I said, but we lived off of garden and what we had in storage food for about 3.5 years. So that really makes a big impression on you. You take this stuff seriously, you think about it. So as an adult, I felt like that was like my job to make sure I had that kind of deep larder, as a backup. So.
Yeah, I'm really feeling that pressure right now. Yeah, larder.
What's a deep larder?
Larder is like
food storage.
Yeah.
Your stash.
Yeah. Your stash.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. Follow along. So I got a question for everybody here. If somebody doesn't have a garden, but they exchange whatever goods and or services in order to get food items to consume, can or store in some way, does that make them a homesteader even though they don't grow any of their own food?
I think if you're not acquiring, growing or hunting like anything, I don't know, that might be maybe we found a qualifying factor.
That you have to be a producer?
A producer.
Yeah, I agree. I think anything else, you're just a prepper, I think.
Yeah. No, I think some level of food production or acquisition is probably requisite.
What if they take the raw product produce it into a better product that they, can store for themselves or then resell it or barter it something else.
That just makes
what
you the
I plan on
middleman.
doing.
That's the middleman.
So you
It's
still
not
have to
it's
be a
not a bad
producer.
gig, I think, but I think it is kind of just. I think
You got to
you
get your
finally
hands
found
dirty.
the
You got
one
to get your
thing.
hands in
Yeah,
the dirt.
you've got
Okay.
to be producing it.
So there's the one thing
Yeah.
on the Homesteader punch card that you gotta produce. You gotta produce something. You gotta start with a raw product and make it a consumable product. Like you can't eat a baby chick.
Yeah.
You can't eat lettuce seeds. So you gotta bring that to a consumable.
I've seen a guy eat a baby chick.
Gross. What?
What's that
Dude,
thing in
I've been
the
on the internet
Philippines?
for like 25 years, man.
There's those partially developed eggs.
Yeah,
Philippines or something.
Oh,
I think
Southeast
China
Asia.
too.
doesn't
Yeah.
count. They're weird.
That's different cuisine for sure.
That's
I wouldn't want to do it, but I've seen people eat them, and I mean it's basically the same thing, but far afield from the topic. I do think
Sure.
you have found the thing. I would agree. If,
All right.
if anything else, you're just finishing someone else's work, I think, and so I think you do have to be the beginning stages of production, I think, to qualify. And I think it would probably have to take place on your home per the homestead, to some degree at least, right?
All right. I really wanted to find that line tonight, so I wanted to be sure to bring that up.
I think there's the one qualifier I would say is that, there's a lot of people who aspire to be homesteaders, and you have to make room for them. I think there's people that are looking for land, that are looking to become producers. You have to make room for them in the movement, if you will. But I think you have to be a producer. I agree with that.
Yeah, and I don't know. I mean, as I was aspiring for, well, I probably aspired for more years than I have been doing this. So I wouldn't denigrate that if the effort was there. To the point where I was doing things that my parents, trying to learn a little bit before I got on my own place. So yeah, I wouldn't denigrate that if you're trying or you're doing your research and learning. Then yeah, you'd qualify. I'd give you the benefit of the doubt. And it can be, I mean, especially these days with property prices and all that, it can be really hard to get going, to go from, that apartment to a piece of property.
And I think doing stuff with your parents or with your family, that's pretty close, because you're, that intergenerational activity and all that. That's important. That's probably really grounded and planted. It's grounded, and I think that's another good call out too.
I think there's that. I think it was Joel Salatin book, I think, but he was talking about old people having the stuff and young people having the fire to go do it, and I think that was kind of in a nutshell what ended up happening, and it's a good way to get into it. And he talks about it. It's not an original thought by me, but he talks about that a lot. Finding those, whether it be your parents or not, but you can get into it for sure.
Yeah, he talks a lot about that in Fields of Farmers. That's one of the books that really hits that pretty hard. That the average age of the U.S. farmer is like 65 or something like that, and yeah,
and I think now more than ever, that the older generation having the stuff but not the energy. That's never been more true than now. Like, property is just so out of reach for most people right now. The market is just so crazy that, I think a crucial factor is finding the people that do have land and don't necessarily have the energy left to work it. And building, whether it's equity sharing situations or something beyond like indentured servitude on your aristocrat's land. Finding ways to make it really work for everybody involved.
Yeah, I mean, there's some pretty cool things that people have arranged with, like land leases, whether it be for hunting or for hay or for pasture. And there's ways to do it. And I've seen some of the agreements that are struck like for market farmers that seem a little bit towards that end of the spectrum where it's like a indenture servitude more than an
Yeah.
actual, arrangement. But I think there's some good opportunities there. A lot of families want to maintain that, family equity or whatever, patrimony, whatever you want to call it. And then they don't want to sell yet, or the kids don't want to sell or whatever. And maybe you can find that arrangement there,
Yep. We got a couple notes here. I don't know. I can only take a guess. I think it was Dylan who left notes in the shared file here. He writes how to homestead without being Laura Ingalls, and he's got a couple of bullet points here. Garden on other people's land. Young people, old people seem to be adverse. Preserve food, grow ceilings. Purchase animals and put on someone's land, so kind of like what we're talking about, and then invest in other people's farms. That's an interesting point. And when we do take off here, I'm trying to go through a program, Land Link Montana, which links landowners and land seekers, I think is what they call them. So like connect the two, like, hey, I've got land. You wanna farm? You wanna grow stuff? You wanna raise animals, garden, whatever? Like, let's connect. We can work together, and so I'm trying to make that happen. So I'm like this property will still be used, even though I'm not here. Like that would it'd be very hypocritical of me if I was just like, nah, don't touch it. Let's just leave it as it has been for the last since it was under a lake 10,000 30,000 years ago, whatever. I want someone to use this place and like gain some skills, be profitable from it even. That would be amazing.
I really like that last point, especially invest in other people's farms. There's so many people who are maxing out their own personal energy on whatever operations they are already working on. But there's so many places that have so much space. If somebody's got a couple 100 acres they're doing pasture-based livestock on, odds are they got a couple acres that would make a great market garden, or they got a quarter acre where you could put a cool worm farm, or to plug another operation into an existing structure has enormous potential to be beneficial to all parties. You spread unused castings on the pastures, or you have leftover produce to throw to the pigs and the chickens, or whatever. There's so many options. I think the biggest limit there is counties, especially like where I am. I'm on the rural fringe of a suburban county, so like ideally I would love to bring on another person who has like a whole operation in mind and can plug it into one corner of the property, and we can work together to support each other, to make something greater than the sum of the parts.
There's a farm that we farmer couple that we we're somewhat close. They're kind of like mentors to us, a lot younger than us, but a lot more farming experience than us. So, but they have a partner on their property that's doing mushrooms, and they are able to combine that with their CSA, and that's a cool offering to have. I would love it if there was someone around me that said, hey, you got all this deciduous hardwood forest, can I go drop some shiitake logs back there, and I'll come water them every other day or whatever it is, and whatever. That'd be awesome. I'd love that. I did have a guy come out here and help us, permaculture designer who's kind of an urban homesteader, really like at the forefront of getting chickens to be legal in the city limits in Columbia, South Carolina.
Nice.
And he came out and helped us with our design and picked the species that we planted in our forest garden and all that kind of stuff. But then he also just come out and helped, and we kind of just try to trade. If he needs cash, we pay cash, and if he needs chickens or pork, we pay chickens and pork. And I feel such a debt to him just because he's been a great help. And I've told him multiple times, this, our house is your house kind of thing. I think those types of relationships are really critical.
let people know where we can find this guy if people are watching in your area.
Well, the guy's name is Matt Kipp, and he's pretty active, I think, on Facebook and stuff. I think his website, I think he took it down recently, but Matt Kipp, Sustainable South. If you can probably find him at Sustainable South or something like that, and Matt Kipp is his name.
All right,
Really brilliant,
awesome.
brilliant guy. Yeah, really brilliant guy.
Maybe I could try to get him on the show.
Yeah, he'd be fantastic. Yeah.
That'd be sweet. So, what are some ways that we can be investing in other people's farms?
Well, selfishly, I'll say go buy a local farmer's product at the farmer's market would be a great way to start.
Other than the obvious.
I mean, when we had pigs when we first got pigs, and my father-in-law runs a vending machine route, and they do a lot of the work kitchens, and so we had a ton of excess food, and once a week he used to bring that back. It was all expired, and we would sort through probably 70 pounds of expired food and dump to the pigs. And so even little things like that you may not, somebody may not keep, gather waste. I thought I saw somebody do, I think it was on Twitter. Somebody was, if you give us a bucket of your scraps, we'll give you a carton of eggs or something like that. Those are really simple ways, simple ways to barter that, and again, not the obvious of buying, although I wouldn't be opposed to somebody handing me some cash for some milk, but there are other ways of doing it too. Even to the point of there are, especially around Kansas City, there are a lot of pieces of land that aren't used, and if somebody's saying, hey, you can run your goats here, or because there are a lot of places that code wise it's it's not a big deal, but little stuff like that, the scraps for eggs, or these little things that anybody can do, especially if the farm, I don't necessarily really care what my chickens eat or what my pigs eat. I'm not organic or anything, I'm not super crunchy in that regard. So, you want to throw me a bucket of scraps, I'll give you a dozen eggs for that, especially with grain prices the way they are. You got some extra stuff to feed the pigs, you're saving me a bunch of money. I'll give you a couple packs of bacon or something, So there's lots of ways, little ways like that wouldn't be, especially for a smaller homestead. If you're more like Long Story, where you're actually, selling legitimate things of meat, then it's a different story. I imagine he's a little more picky about what he feeds his pigs. But
part of our marketing is that we only give them non-GMO feed, so some of the scraps would be off limits for us.
Yeah. But you could find somebody doing more of the backyard thing for sure.
Yep.
But
and I'd be really open to some of those types of things. It would just I would be a little bit more picky than maybe a backyard person. So,
but it is there are ways to get involved. It's something really anybody can do, whether you're in an apartment or not. You get involved in your, without having to throw down some cash. So
yeah, I'm actually going to launch a big community composting program. I hope it turns out to be big. We'll see. We're going to set up a little station in front of the house, and have a stack of clean buckets and some instructions, and maybe a logbook for reward type stuff, whether it's eggs or the castings as the worms get productive, and stuff like that. And I think here a big selling point on that is we got bears, so people don't want to leave food scraps in the garbage can outside, so they got to keep it somewhere. So hey, here's a nice bucket with a tight fitting lid.
You just want all the bears
come get a clean one
on your property.
Well, no, I'll go out and
I
make sure there's nothing sitting out there overnight. I'll go out every evening and pull buckets or whatever. But yeah, we'll see. I like that idea. Getting people to give me animal feed and compost fodder. That's awesome.
Well, and they get involved that way. I think the other thing too is kind of networking those connections. I know when we first got started, most of the fencing that we had was stuff that people gave us, either a friend of a friend or a friend's mom or whatever. You know, they found out, hey, we're going to raise animals, and you know, they had 60 T-posts,
Nice.
you know, or I got a bunch of chain link fencing. I had to go get it, you know, it was a pain, but it saved me a bunch of money, and it got me in a great setup for free. So you can get involved just networking those things, you know, just thinking about that kind of stuff, you know, leftovers.
Yeah,
You
there's
touched
a.
on something. Go ahead, Jeffrey.
I was gonna say there's a local guy who grows microgreens, and we do some trading, but he gives me all of the spent soil that he uses. So I take all the root
Nice.
mats, I throw them in with the chickens if there's anything left, and if not, just toss them in the compost pile. Those little things like that are really cool. I'd forgotten about that.
Josiah, you touched on a word there. Make them feel involved. I think that's a huge part in making them feel connected with their food. Like if they're not a producer, i.e., not a real homesteader, that they can at least get involved in some way, whether like they bring a bucket of scraps and they get like a dozen eggs. So like they kind of can connect the dots and like feel the process instead of just like cash eggs. And it's like food eggs.
No, and
now
it
we're shifting gears here.
absolutely. I think that, I mean, it's probably it's a smaller feeling than what I have, you know, raising a chicken, you know, raising a chick to a chicken to laying an egg that I eat the egg, you know, but they do get that feeling because they are involved to some degree. They've seen that, or, you know, they'll see, you know, my wife posts a bunch of pictures of the goats, you know, so when they drink the milk, they see the pictures from that. And, you know, we gave some milk to the folks that gave us the chain link fence, you know, so they were part and parcel of the reason why we were able to pull off goats so fast. And so, yeah, I don't necessarily know how it made them feel, but it made me feel good to kind of repay them that kindness, you know, and give them back something. So there's,
Yeah,
you know, hopefully there was an exchange of that, and they felt that. So
they must have. Yeah. So being mindful of people's time, what do you guys want to wrap up on? Anything else that you want to say? And head out with.
I think one more thing that I would like to mention, especially on this like getting people involved note, one of the coolest community building exercises I've ever been a part of was out in our little rural community in Hawaii when I lived there. We would have a crop swap during the growing season. Obviously, the growing season there is a lot longer. We did it 9 or 10 months a year out there, but you know, even if you just do it from like the end of June to October or whatever, depending on where you are, and get all the gardeners in the area. You know, one guy's got 100 pounds of cucumbers this week, and one guy's got a bunch of corn or tomatoes or whatever. And everybody would just bring what they had together, and we would put it out on tables, and everybody would go down like a little farmer's market and just take things. And you know, you didn't have to bring anything to go home with food. It was, you know, part food pantry, part social event. You know, just hanging out, really. And everybody leaves with a bigger variety than they came with. Just little things, making your property a community hub on any level, whether it's dropping off buckets of compost or hosting events like that. Any scale is going to help. We need more resilient communities for what's coming.
Absolutely. That's
Yeah.
good. That's gonna be the only thing that saves us, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would second that. I think, you know, when we wrap up the farmers market, there's a few of us of the vendors that kind of do like a little mini crop swap at the end. You know, like, hey, I've got some duck eggs, and I'll trade that with some corn or whatever. The other thing I would say is just, you know, I know this is a pretty common concept among the people that we roll with, if you will, but just trying to localize as much of your of your own consumption as you possibly can. You know, buying from your neighbor as much as you possibly can, trading with your neighbor as much as you possibly can. I think that's really critical.
Awesome. You guys want to say where everyone can find you and follow what you're doing?
I mean, we're on Facebook and Twitter. That's about it. So don't have a website yet. So
That
come
is
find us in
Long
the
Story
farmers market.
Farms speaking. If
Yep.
you're on the audio version,
Yeah, sorry guys. Long Story
No,
Farms at
that's all right.
Facebook or Twitter. Yeah.
Me, I'm just at Exo Agriculture or Martian Farmer on Twitter. Yeah, hit me up. We'll cyberbully some government officials together.
And
I'm
ahead, Josiah.
Inventive15 on Twitter, or Josiah Young, and that's my only online presence currently. So.
And I am Matt Derosier of a FarmHopLife. I really appreciate you guys jumping in. This was a ton of fun. We got a really good discussion tonight, and it totally went down a path I was not expecting, but it was really good conversation. A lot of good ideas tonight. Love this. So appreciate you guys being here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Matt.
Yep.
Thanks, guys.
All right.
All right.